This is Sister Anita Day Assis, and she has worked truly in a lot of different organizing, educating, mobilizing, and funding, decolonizing in this city on a myriad of interconnected issues, from decolonizing and saving public education to workers' rights, to fighting against police terror and for housing and against homelessness. She is the founder of Healthy Hoods and Young Oakland and the co-founder of Feed the People and the Village. Join me in giving her a warm welcome and thanking her for her work. She'll be speaking to us about housing as well, and we'll have a couple other speakers on other issues. Thank you. First, let's show her some love.
Thank you. How y'all doing today? Y'all haven't woken up yet. You haven't had your coffee. How y'all doing today? All right, all right. Thank you guys for sharing this space and for having us. Just to piggyback off what both of you had said, you know, I just want to remind everyone that Black Panther's number 0.4 of their 10-point program was affordable housing for all.
Yes.
And I want to start it off by saying that housing is actually a human right.
Come on now.
But in 2017, it has clearly on a global level become a privilege. It's not just the city, it's not just the state, it's just not the nation. We're talking about around the world, housing is a privilege. We're talking about indigenous people all the way to working class people being displaced. And as long as the system of capitalism exists and imperialism exists, we're always gonna have homeless folks.
Yes.
Just like we're always gonna have people who are exploited, just like we're always gonna have poverty, because it's just the nature and the function of the system. So to get to the root of all these problems, we have to get to the root of the system of imperialism and capitalism. And that what we see happening now, even though we've always had poverty under the system, we've always had homelessness under the system, what we're seeing now is this crisis, meaning that, you know, there used to be this stereotype or this real reality of, because of what Reagan did back in the day, and his predecessors before him, folks who were homeless tended to be like veterans. People who had come back from the military tended to be, when they emptied out all the mental health institutes under Reagan's era, it was folks with mental health issues. When crack cocaine hit the ghetto, it became people who were on drugs who had lost their belongings because they got hooked onto the drugs. But it is now a crisis, not just because of the numbers, but because every single one of us sitting in this room and every single person that we know is now susceptible to becoming homeless. It's not just a population that's dealing with special issues. It's every single one of us could be homeless at any time. And so what we have happening now across the country and here in Oakland is that we have our own refugee crisis.
Yes.
We have people who are refugees of our own cities.
Yes.
We have people who are refugees of our own neighborhoods. And it's so ironic that this is in this time that we're talking about sanctuary cities, we also need to be applying sanctuary to the working class. We need sanctuary to the low income. We need sanctuary for the homeless themselves. Because a problem that we're dealing with homelessness, and this is part of how homelessness has been you know, and poverty has been framed within capitalism, is that it's a crime to be homeless. But it's not a crime. The system is a crime. If housing is a human right, then how can it be criminal that you do not have a human right being met? And so when we talk about sanctuary cities, I'd like to see folks start talking about low-income folks, working class folks, and homeless folks also in need of sanctuary in our own cities. And so there was a question that was posed for the teaching that I want to address, and it was, how does development impact, protect, or promote our communities? And what we see happening here is we see, and across the country, is gentrification in working class and low-income communities. And does everyone know what gentrification is before I move forward? Raise your hand if you do not know what gentrification is. Okay, all right, so we're gonna talk about it. And does everyone know what gentry is? Has everyone heard that word gentry? All right, raise your hand if you do not know what the gentry is. All right. So the gentry, the root word of gentrification, is an old English word. It means those who are landed, the people who have land. And so when they say they're gentrifying a city, what they're doing is they're taking people who have land, who have masses of land. These people who are coming from the Midwest, who are coming from wherever they're coming from. They're not giving up the land. Their mothers, their fathers, they themselves, their grandparents are not giving up their land to come into our neighborhoods to get new land. They're keeping that land, and they're assessing more land. So when you gentrify someplace, you're taking people who already have lots of resources, who already own land, and you're giving them access to more land, and you're making more people landless. And so when we're talking about gentrification, there is a direct correlation in gentrification and homelessness. As people said earlier, we're now seeing working class folks who hold down working class jobs, who hold down good paying union jobs, who are working in some of these new 300 restaurants that have popped up in Oakland. They're working in these 5-star restaurants, and they're homeless, and they were born and raised here, and they can't afford the city that they work in, and they can't afford the city that they helped put on the map, and they can't afford the city that they were raised in. And so we cannot talk about gentrification or homelessness without talking about them as the two sides of the same coin.
Yes.
And I just wanted to say that the county every couple of years does a thing that they called a point in time count, where they count how many homeless people they see in the county, city by city. And they say that 69% of all homeless in Alameda County exist in Oakland itself. Yes. And how they do their case in point count is they count who they see. According to their case in point count, as of January 2017, we have 2,700 and something homeless folks. Well, I'm part of a group called Feed the People, and we out in the streets every week. And we started off, it was me and my daughter, who's sitting up there. She actually had the idea she's shy. She actually had the idea to start this off because what we were seeing was there are encampments in Oakland that have been here all my life. They've been there. And what we saw is that they were getting bigger. Yes. Like, vastly. Y'all know. Yes. Y'all see it. Yes. And then we saw more and more and more encampments. And it was overwhelming, and it was depressing me. It was really like, I feel things a little bit too much sometimes. And she's like, well, Mom, I'm a caterer by trade. And she said, well, Mom, just go and we'll go and, serve people food. And I was like, that's not gonna change anything. She's like, it's gonna do something. And so we started serving people food, and then we started providing provisions because we realized it had to be more than food. And then we provided advocacy because we realized it had to be more than that. And then we started defending the encampments because they were getting attacked by the pigs. They were getting attacked by Public Works. They were getting attacked by the city. And they were getting attacked by these gentrifiers. Yes. And then they also have been getting attacked by the street gangs. The street gangs are now seeing the encampments as a place where they can be making their money. Yes. So according to our time and count, there is at least 6,000 people who are homeless in Oakland.
Yeah, come on now.
So one thing I wanted to talk about, so how does it impact us? It causes homelessness, it's delanding people. This issue of affordable housing. Affordable housing is a biased term. It is based on the median of the current existing population. Yes. So what was affordable before gentrification is no longer affordable. And as more and more people who have way more money than us keep coming into the city, affordable housing continues to be pushed up. So affordability is it's a tricky term. I don't believe in it. And then we have this situation with Section 8 in public housing, right? So there's a law with Section 8 in public housing that wherever you get your voucher, you have to stay in that city for a year, and then you have the opportunity to take that voucher to another city and get affordable housing in another city. Because we're helping folks out on the streets fill out these vouchers, what we're finding is that a whole lot of people on the streets actually have vouchers for housing in Oakland. But because these gentrifiers are coming in, and because the realty companies have bought out the families that used to own these homes, they don't want our money no more, and they don't want the government money because they can get 3, 4, 5 times more money for a unit than for public housing. So what's happening is if you go and fill out the paperwork for Section 8 housing or HUD housing, you read the first page, and the first page says how to fill out your voucher. The second page, and this is just for the city of Oakland. They made a special book just for us, y'all. The second page of that says how to move out of Oakland.
Come on now.
There is not enough Section 8 or public housing being accepted. So I'm going to jump into what we can do because we don't have that much time left. First and foremost, educate yourselves. Dispel the myths about homelessness. Connect the dots. Everything you see, all the issues you see in our community, they're all related. And if we can connect the dots, we see the big picture and we come to an answer. Number two, if you have housing right now and you're renting, this is what me and my folks do. Do not give up your lease. Pass it on to someone else. People are like, well, you know, I can't do that. That's against the law. Man, slavery was against the law and that needed to be broken. When a law doesn't make sense, break it. And so what me and my friends do is that if we move, because like our families grow or we have to like, you know, whatever, we have to move around, we do not give up our leases. We just share our leases with each other. And what happens is we have property around Oakland that we've had for 20 years now, and there's been hella people who've lived in those apartments that are not on the lease, but the rent's the same. We have a 2-bedroom apartment for example, we have a 2-bedroom apartment over at Lake Merritt. Everyone around us is paying $3,000, $4,000 for the same apartment, right? Ours is $750. Don't give up your lease, because once you give up your lease, it's out, and so is everybody else that you know. Second thing to do, collectively pool your resources, because land is life. And if we're working class and low income folks, and even if you're like at this point an upper working class person, you can't afford these prices. Houses are going for $1 million, $2 million, $3 million, outrageous. In the bottoms, what? In Deep East, what? So collectively pool your resources to purchase land. And if your family has home and property here in the Bay Area, have these deep conversations and do not sell the land. Do not sell that land, because they might give you $1 million for your family property, but you're going to have to give the government some tax, and by the time everything's over, you'll have maybe $500,000, and when that's gone, you will have nothing.
Yes.
Hold on to that land. I'm going to go real quick. Support the homeless folks. Everybody knows a homeless encampment. Go by there. Bring them a cup of coffee. Coffee is life out on the streets. Bring some. I don't smoke. I don't believe in smoking, but if that helps somebody, I'm going to give them a cigarette. Just talk to people. People are humans, and they deserve to be treated with dignity and respect, and that's how we build community with each other. Just because somebody is homeless does not make them your neighbor. That's your neighbor who doesn't have a home.
That's right.
Okay? Pressure the city. So with the Village and Feed the People, we have an antagonistic relationship with the city of Oakland. Yes. We cannot stand the city of Oakland. We are constantly shaming them. We are constantly calling them out, and we believe that they are illegitimate to us. We believe that they are ineffective, and we believe they're not our leaders. And we constantly remind them, you're not our leader, you're our public servant. Now. We pay your salary, so guess what? You need to listen to us. And you don't want to listen to us, we'll get loud. And it's important to show up to city council meetings. That's not where the work happens, but that's where we can make our lives and our policies a little bit easier, so they can take their boot off of our neck, so we can do the real work, which is us coming together. And to close it off, to say that what really gets it done is direct action.
Come on.
Just shake it up. That's what we did with the Village. So all over the Bay Area, people have been fighting for this thing called a shelter crisis ordinance. People have been fighting to make encampments legal. People have been fighting to not criminalize folks for 5, 6, 7, 8 years. In 9 months, the Village was able to get a shelter crisis ordinance, an expanded shelter crisis ordinance, make encampments legal, and get the city to give us public land. All right. We now own the land on 23rd and East 12th because of direct action. We sat in the meeting with them. We took public land. They bulldozed us. We took more public land. They bulldozed us again. We shut down City Hall. We showed up at meetings. We said, we're going to take more land. We're going to take your front yard. Just got them uncomfortable. And in 8 months, we got here in Oakland what other cities in the Bay Area still have not got, and they fought for 8 years.
Hear, hear.
Make things uncomfortable for them. They're too comfortable. They're too comfortable up in City Hall. Make them uncomfortable. And find us on Facebook, The Village, or Feed the People if you want to come join us. We build homes for homeless people, straight up. So we got the public land from the city. We're still seizing more land. Good. We've got churches giving us land. We got mosques giving us land. We got people who got empty lots giving us land. And we're just building homes immediately with services on the land to get people into permanent housing.
There you go.
All right.
Yes, and you went over your time, warrior woman. Check this out. All right, so love you and loving that powerful presentation. Some of y'all got these papers, and if you didn't get them, you need to get them. It's called When the Homeless Rise, the System Trembles. What Sister just spoke to was about a microcosm of that in our city, and we want to blow that up all over the country. This is about a national movement paper that is talking about how do we teach one another, build our movements, build our confidence, exchange experiences, but most importantly, that we do that thing that Reverend Barber said, we have got to raise not simply a resistance, but we have got to be moral dissenters. We've got to reconstruct whatever new future we're going to have. Kevin took us there. Anita took another level of that and talked about how that's being moved forward. These teach-ins are about a space where it's not one classroom, not one library, not one union meeting, but in fact, all of that is community. But we first proceed from bringing up the least of us. When we take care of that business, then we take care of us all. With that, I'm going to move to the next segment, which is about migration. Very important thing, because really in many ways, the refugees that Anita talked about are the new refugees of the 21st century. We got some fine speakers on this, and not enough time. Cutting into our workshop time, but that's the way it is. So I want to bring our first presenter in this area, who is a colleague who I had the honor of working with last year when we kicked off this series of teach-ins. And that's Andrea Calfakir. Forgive me. Monolanguage, so you'll understand. She is formerly a student from here. She now is a student at Merritt College. She is an academy success by providing incentives, resources, and accesses. She is a part of that grouping. And she is an advocate for undocumented DACA refugees, and she's an immigrant student. And she is our own sister. Show her a lot of love. Andrea.
Thank you for the introduction. So I'm a student here in Peralta, and I started here with all these folks, learning how to organize, learning how to do public speaking, and I ended up finding something that really inspired me, make me mad, actually, that really make me mad, and that is the life of undocumented students, refugees, DACA, and all immigrants, really. And when it comes down to being a college student and being an undocumented student is very hard. One, because we all pay full tuition, but we don't get no service to help us to navigate the educational system. So let's say perhaps financial aid. There are so many papers that you need to fill out. For an undocumented student, there is a lot more paper to fill out, and you don't have anyone really that can help you out to understand the papers that you need to do, who you need to talk to, and it's very scary to come out, to say, I am an undocumented, I don't have paper, and so what do you do next? So a group of friends, married, and myself, we put together a club. It's called Aspira, and basically advocate for undocumented students and all immigrants. So we're finding out it's difficult because we have no funding. So here's a little club trying to bring nonprofits to train the staff of all the colleges, because they have no idea really what to advise to the student. If you need even to talk to someone privately, there is no room, there is no office that you can have a private conversation talking about your status. So we're finding a lot of fight back because we ending with the word there is no money to do anything. But okay, so that's one part. And another reason is like what is important for an undocumented student to be in college. And college is a safe place, and it's safer for undocumented because all the information that is given is private. There are FERBA is at the federal level, and then there is a new bill that passed. It's called the Values Act. That's a level, state level that kind of reinforce that. So for an undocumented student or someone who does not have the papers, there is a steps by steps that you need to follow. And what is going on is I also go a lot to high schools, International Oakland High School, Fremont School. There's a lot of immigrants that are there, and unfortunately, they are advised incorrectly, so they come to community college with no idea what paper they should have filled out, and they're ending with a bill of $5,000, $6,000 for the semester. So it's very important to know that I know outside of California, things are falling down drastically for undocumented students and anyone who does not have papers. Here in California, we're lucky. It's not so horrible, it's not great, but we have to continue fight. We have to continue advocating for ourselves. We have to create these places where we can talk about it. Unfortunately, undocumented students are invisible in colleges. I will say all in Peralta, we don't have that center that we can go and feel like, okay, this is what's going on with my life. This is what's going on with my neighbor. I just show up at Fruitville and the same block that I live, and they took up some people. So, you're living with a heavy load every day, and there is no services when you pay full tuition. Just to give you an idea, when I say full tuition, this means someone who has papers and is a citizen pay $46 per unit. An undocumented student who is paying an out-of-state tuition pays $222 per unit, okay? And so a lot of the time we find out that a lot of those issues could be avoided if you had someone, a counselor, or someone that can guide you and say, okay, hey, you forgot to apply to the DREAM Act. DREAM Act is still available. So if you know anyone, you have to tell them, please, apply to CaliforniaDreamAct.org. You fill out that application. Next step, you're gonna apply for Cal Grants, and that's for everyone. Every student should apply for California Cal Grant. And last semester, a lot of money went back because students don't know. And that's not only undocumented. Undocumented can apply that and can get $1,600 for you. You don't have to give it back. The same for any other student. Another step is you have to, once you find out what school you're gonna be, you have to fill in a form that is the AB 540. That's very important because that way you can get your fee waiver kicks in, and then you, instead of paying $6,000, you end up paying maybe $100 or $80. But there is a process, and that process takes forever. So I highly encourage all the students, if that's your passion, if immigration law is your passion, if helping an undocumented student is your passion, you have to become an active student. You have to come up with a club, you have to make connections. I'm working right now with EF4FC, and you should write it down, that E4FC.org. That organization is based in San Francisco, and it's giving a lot of information, resources, and there are resources. The problem is that students don't know, and that's the problem that I have. We don't have enough information that is accurate, because that's the other problem. We end up with a lot of staff or counselors or in the school that they have no idea that now, for example, there is a new law, and I will, please come to me and I can tell you more. I have a lot of information that I brought. There is a webinar next week that you should check it out. Get inspired, get uncomfortable. super uncomfortable, get mad, get out and start building that network, because the truth is, it's not your fault. And I go back with what Chris says, because you're an undocumented, it's not your fault. So it is time for find allies. And if you're not undocumented, that doesn't mean that you can fight. So this is the time, really, and I'm just honored and thankful to give this space, because I'm the voice. I'm not an undocumented student, but I'm the voice of the ones that are afraid today to be here. So yeah, join the group. Thank you.
Andreas, could you repeat the URL? We were trying to put it up, and you were going fast.
Yeah, I was E as an elephant, number 4, F as in Frank, C as in Carlos.org.
Thank you. Show her some love, y'all. We love her. Our own. Our next, and not final, but our next speaker on migration is Jasmine Poyawan. Thank you for being patient with me. She's also going to speak on migration. She's from the East Bay Community Law Center, who I have a special affinity with, because in all the years that I've worked on anti-poverty work, and I remember when that center started, and it has been an integral part of fighting for the lives of women and poor people with very, very few resources. And the complexion has changed of the attorneys, and I mean that both in a loving way and a good way, but also obviously has the nature of who is our population. She works on, she can talk about gentrification, displacement. She has a multi-modal approach to engaging in both immediate and long-term strategies of direct legal services and systems that change through policy and community empowerment. And we were really, especially at the Teach-In Committee, we were really concerned that we also have somebody with that kind of specialty on the panel, especially given the urgency that Andreas laid out. So with that, we welcome, and I ask you to help me welcome Jasmine with us to speak. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm really honored to be here today. I feel sort of like a slacker since I wasn't informed as to what specifically to talk about, because East Bay Community Law Center, we have so many different services, but I did know that the context of Oakland, the context of Laney College, the A Stadium being proposed, what I really want to talk about really is gentrification and displacement and the crisis that we're experiencing, not just here in the Bay Area, not just here in California, not just here in the US, but as other speakers have pointed out, this is a global issue, a global crisis. And being specific here to being called to talk about migration and displacement, kind of want to take a bird's eye view and really expand the conversation on displacement to look at this more globally by maybe perhaps sharing a little bit of my family's own migration history and how that connects to the displacement crisis that we're experiencing here in Oakland and the Bay Area today. So my family, they migrated from the Philippines to San Francisco, actually the Tenderloin, back in the 1970s. And they were forced basically to migrate from the Philippines due to what I now have the language to call economic displacement, the extraction of jobs and resources from developing countries and forcing people to go out and go to countries like the US. And that happened, moved to the Tenderloin, stayed there for a few years, and then moved to Union City, where I was born in Hayward, raised in Union City, grew up there all my life until my family experienced another act of displacement where they can no longer afford to live where they lived. I experienced homelessness in high school and was forced to migrate backwards to the Philippines, where my whole worldview shifted and changed. And I started questioning and being very critical as to the push and pull factors that were causing people to uproot their lives and basically be at will to the forces of the market and our capitalist system. When I came back, especially from the Philippines, to go to Chabot College in Hayward, I was met with a lot of change. There were a lot of changes in the community, a lot of barriers to going back to school, but I was determined. I wanted to make life better, not just for myself, but for my family. And I put myself through school. I ended up going to law school and becoming a lawyer. And throughout that journey, I realized that I met a lot of people that had to go through very similar experiences, coming from a low-income background, coming from an immigrant background, many friends who are undocumented. I appreciate the stories, all that have been shared today. Many friends who experienced homelessness just like me, many who were system involved or had family members who were system involved. And I started connecting the dots and seeing that my individual experiences were characteristic of what was going on in communities, specifically Black and brown communities, communities of color who were historically underserved, and due to racist policies, racist laws, which ironically, I learned more as I went to law school and started learning about cause this, this divide, this stark divide. And I think, Nita talked about how as long as we have capitalism, as long as we have imperialism, there's always going to be that divide. There's always going to be the rich, the poor, those who have wealth and resources, and those who are relegated to homelessness and lack of resources. And I started seeing that, yeah, I had all this education, but I wasn't happy because one thing that I like to impart on folks now, especially folks who have similar backgrounds and have similar drives to give back to their families and to themselves, is really to think about your community and think about the bigger picture. That yes, education's so important. I love what Jessica said about education being about owning your mind and self-betterment. But there's a way to educate yourself and not assimilate into oppressive systems, not assimilate into capitalism, not assimilate into white supremacy. And that's something that I took with me out of law school. Law school was a very oppressive space, especially for a woman of color from a low-income background who had to put herself through a community college system, going to school with mostly white folks who probably knew nothing about community college and not even the importance of it. And I made a vow to myself that as a lawyer, I would go back to my community and similar situated communities and be a lawyer for the people, community lawyer, but mostly a movement lawyer. Because we're talking about all these crises right now, but there's also, when there's crises, there's resistance. And we're also talking about resistance, and we're talking about movements. And the response to displacement really is going to come from all different fronts. It's going to be led by the people. It's already being led by the people. It's going to be led by the folks who are most marginalized and most affected. We're seeing this in the homeless encampments. We're seeing this through examples of the village, Feed the People. We're seeing this through students today, you all rallying and educating yourselves and empowering yourselves and each other to fight for your communities and defend your college, defend your communities against developments, against developers who are really just trying to extract wealth and ignore the communities that have already existed here. And so that's something that I'm part of through my role at the East Bay Community Law Center. We're the largest free legal services provider in Alameda County, where we range from providing housing services. So if you ever face an eviction or abuses, harassment from your landlord, you can come to East Bay Community Law Center. We're located on the border of South Berkeley and North Oakland. We also provide services to those who are homeless, provide services to those who are on public benefits, those who are undocumented. We help with deportation defense, consumer debt if you have issues with credit cards, student loans. If you're formerly incarcerated or have loved ones who are formerly incarcerated, we help with record expungements and helping defend against employment discrimination. So we have a whole host of direct legal services that address immediate concerns, because we recognize that we can be talking about big picture, talking about long-term effects of displacement, but we also recognize that people are at it right now and are facing emergencies and crises every single day. And so we balance those immediate strategies with what was mentioned, our long-term strategies as well. And that's the unit that I work in. It's called the Community Economic Justice Clinic. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that in my last 2 minutes, but essentially just wanted to sort of repeat what everyone's been saying. We use, the attorneys and organizers on my team, we use our legal services, our credentials, to essentially negotiate on behalf of community coalitions. In South Berkeley, we helped a resident group negotiate for more housing that was affordable, required subsidized housing in their new for-profit developments. We advised communities on the public approval process when they wanted to fight against a certain development in their communities. We educated them on the litigation process and how to fight and look at the legal loopholes. We recognize that laws are very oppressive and are written also by decision makers who probably and likely don't have community members' interests at stake. And so we're here to level out the playing field, and we're here to really exploit those loopholes in favor of the people and in favor of community members. And because we recognize that in a lot of ways, we're putting Band-Aids on the problems every time we go to court, every time we fight off evictions, that in addition to that, we also need to address the systemic root, which is our capitalist economic system. And we don't take our economy as a given. And I call on everyone in this room to not take the economy as a given, that it is going to have to change. It's not sustainable. There are too many people suffering under the way the rules are set up. And so we need to be here to really think about different ways to transform the economy. And I just want to echo Nita on how there are creative ways. Like I said, educate yourselves, but don't assimilate. There are new ways. For instance, in owning land, I second acquiring and pooling resources to own land that's community controlled, that keeps the long-term effects of affordability in mind for future generations. There's different ways of running businesses. We advise a lot of worker-owned cooperatives to make sure that workers in a business are local and are able to have decision-making say and also control over their workplace. And so I just want to put that forth that migration and displacement is always going to happen under our system, under the economy, but we have this opportunity to resist. And as a lawyer and as a law center, EBCLC is really here to assist the people, to take guidance in their people, and really push forward the movement for a better economy. So thank you all for being here, and I look forward to seeing everyone at the rally later today at noon.
There you go. Thank you. Thank you so much, Jasmine. You get special marks for being closest to on time. A number of our speakers raised some new kind of alerts, and each one is putting a piece of this, unpacking this horrific situation that we're facing. And just to underscore, part of the housing crisis that we're dealing with is that our government determined that it was getting out of the business of public housing in the 1980s. So much of the public housing that possibly our families, some of you are way too young to even know this. Some of you weren't even born until the 80s. But this housing used to be publicly, they were born in the 90s, used to be publicly funded. And that process was stopped and systematically decimated. But to underscore what we're facing, Section 8 housing, there is an alert that was sent out between HUD, multi-county, San Francisco County, Alameda County, Contra Costa County, to not accept vouchers cross-county. So one of the reasons we're seeing this explosion of human beings on the streets is because there is no place for them to, quote-unquote, go. So this message that there is, quote, scarcity, but how can we be in the richest nation on the planet and there be scarcity? It's a question of how those resources are being applied. The problem, as Chris laid out, is that we're in the midst of fundamental abundance, but most of us don't control it. So that's one other point. And then the one on Alta Bates, really important that you highlighted that, Jessica, because as we sit here, the proposal by the leaders of Sutter is to close Alta Bates. Anybody in this room, any of y'all had to use Alta Bates maybe to take your family to an emergency, or maybe you were born there or something like that? The explosion of population in the Bay Area, it's off the charts. So if that hospital closed, we've lost Doctors Hospital, that means that hospital would then be closed. Essentially, you're talking about the clinics, y'all gonna have a handful there, girlfriend, Highland Hospital, and then more of Sutter. We cannot accept this. When we're saying that this is not just one problem, y'all, it's all of them. And we need to have a multifaceted strategy that applies what do we need in order to live lives with dignity. So then I bring on my dear colleague and friend who's gonna wrap this all up with us on the A's, Dr. Kimberly King. Now she's one of your own. She is an instructor on psychology and African American studies here at Laney College and a faculty co-coordinator of Umoja Ubaka at Student Success Community at Laney. She is a diversity chairperson for the union, the Peralta Federation of Teachers, and she is a member of the Laney Faculty Senate and active with the Teach-In Planning Committee. Kimberly was born and raised in Oakland, so for one of our own on so many levels, show some love.
So I'm gonna stand up too, just because I need that energy. So it's an honor to share this panel with people, diverse fighters from different areas. And what it really highlights to me is that we are all in this together. We must work together because, as everybody is saying, this system really is trying to kill us. We're in a battle for the future of our city here in Oakland, for the future of our students, our children, our communities, and even our lives. And although the fight to keep public land in public hands and away from the Oakland A's corporation is a local fight, as other people have mentioned, it's also part of a global struggle against the merger of governments with corporations. That's what's happening here. A fight against corporate control and a fight for our basic necessities, our housing, food, healthcare, education, and a society, as other people have said, there's abundance in this society. The problem is it's not being shared. A tiny class of people is controlling all the resources in our society, and we can't keep living like that, and we don't have to. I don't know if you all know that the majority owner of the A's, John Fisher, is the son of the founders of the Gap Corporation. He is a billionaire. As we speak, Fisher and A's executives are making plans to secure a highly profitable real estate deal. They're pretending like it's just about a stadium. It's actually a real estate deal where they're going to have high-cost apartments and condos and high-cost retail shops. Instead of rebuilding the current Coliseum on the site where there's already a Coliseum in East Oakland, the A's president wants to build near Lake Merritt in downtown Oakland, where the best real estate opportunities are, where the best financing rates are, where their opportunities for the most profit are. They don't mind that Laney College and Chinatown and the other areas that's already here, they can't make money off of us, so we don't matter. The majority of the people in Oakland are seeing every day that the things that we need to survive are being taken away from us, one at a time. This is called dispossession. We are all being dispossessed of our money, our homes, our education, our health care, our freedoms, and even democracy, what's been left of it. Corporations are no longer job creators, they are job destroyers. And they are using government and the state globally to dispossess the people, no matter where you come from. Do you guys think that the construction and operation of a stadium here is going to be good for Laney students? Is that going to be good for our community, for the Chinatown community, for the people that live in this area? Good. Including the students who attend BCC, COA, and Merritt. We're all in one district. Right. And what happens to Laney, if Laney falls, it's going to affect all of our Peralta schools, including faculty jobs.
Yes.
Laney is like a home to many of our students, as people have said. It's a quiet place, a safe sanctuary for people, where they can focus on learning and personal and professional development. Would you want a stadium built next to your home, across the street from your home? At the same time, Laney and our communities are not ideal. We do need changes. Our communities and Laney are being starved of the public resources that we need to thrive. Our parks, our schools, our streets in our neighborhoods, our housing is not adequate. Why is this happening? Well, the ruling class, the tiny economic class who mostly controls our government and our country now, will not support people they no longer need to make profit. In today's economy, people are needed less and less because of the new technology, as we're hearing that technology is everywhere. And that technology could be used to provide abundance for all of us. As people have said, the science could be used for that, but instead, it's in the control of a few private hands, and they're using it to oppress the rest of us. There are people, Instead, in the private hands of a few, the jobs, which is our way of making a living in a capitalist society, are being replaced by computers, automation, artificial intelligence. This is a revolution in the economy. It's creating a new class of people who don't have any way to make a living. They don't have anywhere to live. That's why we're seeing these encampments. It's made up of people of all ethnicities, of all races, of all religions, of all genders, of all sexual orientations. The people who do find work today have no job security. We might have part-time temporary jobs, and this even includes some of your faculty members. I don't know if you know, but 70% of the faculty in the Peralta are part-time contingent workers. They don't have a guarantee of a job from semester to semester. They have masters and PhDs.
Yes. Yes.
So even though there's a lot of opportunities in education, under this current system, education is not going to save you. Many of us are fighting. Students, community members, faculty and staff are standing up. We're trying to fight for our communities and our lives. But to fight smart and to win, we have to study. We have to understand what we're actually up against. It's not just one fight against one billionaire sports team owner. It's not just a fight to get one Democrat elected or one Republican defeated. Corporations already own both political parties.
Come on now, say that.
The movement of the people for our basic necessities, including housing, food, healthcare, and education, will only succeed by replacing corporate ownership and control of our society with a collective public ownership and control of abundance. That abundance can eradicate poverty and homelessness globally. Our unity, though, is necessary to achieve that. The lack of democracy that we're seeing in the selling of this community college land, even though the majority of the faculty are opposed to it, I heard the majority of the classified staff are opposed. I believe the majority of the students are opposed. The majority of the local community is opposed. They're still going to sell it. I mean, I'm going to fight till the end, but I don't know if we're going to win. Because they're billionaires.
Yes.
And they control both our city government and more, and even, to be honest, our academic leadership. Public officials are starting to turn to corporations and are being controlled by corporations. As other people have said, our government should serve the people. If they're not, something needs to change. Fascism today is not just for authoritarianism, but the rulers are creating a militarized police state and a fascist political movement to crush the motion of the people. All the people that are up here are fighting. We're fighting because we have to. You guys are fighting because you have to. That's not in the interest of the people who currently run our country. Is my time up? Okay, 2 minutes, right on. Okay. Private deals behind closed doors may result in displacing the community where Laney sits, and eventually displacing Laney College altogether. The displacement is not caused by the A's, it's caused by a revolution in the economy that is replacing human workers with automated machines, etc. Students, faculty, and staff and community at Laney are finding ourselves at ground zero of this battle, and we must keep fighting. The potential A's deal is gonna displace people that are living in this area as they, Oakland is the 7th most expensive rental market in the whole country. And it's gonna get way worse as more people are pushed out and more developers are allowed to develop. But the A's deal also reflects that our public education system has been abandoned. Yes. And so our chancellor and the board of trustees and some faculty feel that we have to go to private corporations in order to make up for that. But as people have said, there's plenty of wealth in this society. We don't need to go to the A's. Corporations like the A's are stopping our state from getting the fair share of taxes that we need, that we could have a beautiful facility here at Laney. There's no need for scarcity. It's false scarcity.
Yes.
The students, faculty, and staff and community must hold our government responsible to properly fund our public colleges and to provide affordable housing, actual affordable housing for the 99%. But we need the political power to do so. And that political power is going to come from our unity, not from working separately, not from not understanding that our issues are connected, because it's the whole system that needs to go down, and we are all in this together. Thank you.
Nice job. Wow. Okay, so I know there's been classes that have been coming in and out. Powerful panel. Show them a little bit more love, y'all, because it's been a really good session. Really. We don't have as much time as we would like to do the breakout, but we're going to do the breakout. Jill, you've been a great timekeeper. I'm going to ask you to come up and do the special announcement for the next part, which is we're going to do the breakouts, but what's happening after the breakouts? Tell them who you are. One of our teachers.
Hi, I'm Jill Neely. I teach ESL here at Laney. And I want you all, if you can, there's going to be a rally in the quad from 12 to 2, led by the students, so we can keep this resistance going and the fight. Do you want?
That's good. That's good. That's good stuff. Yeah, I'm going to talk about the breakout, but I'm also going to talk, so for folks who just came in, welcome. But I also want to just talk about, so this is your space. And I don't mean your space as in the forum or the group. This is the space that we reclaiming for humanity. So like a lot of you young bloods that have just come in, and I know there's people from different languages, and some of this stuff we say is so fast, and some of these concepts, they haven't had the time that Jasmine or Andrea have done to contemplate them and, get them processed. But this is that beginning. Because actually, we're in both this big cultural revolution, and we're trying to make it into a political revolution. See, the nice part about being community is I ain't bound by nothing but the freedom of aspiring that we move forward to claim the world that you need to win. I'm not prescribed by an institution, but quiet as kept, neither are y'all. So on the real, we got 4 little work groups. But they're not work groups where it's just about earning credit. It's actually much more about how do we begin to reclaim and reconstruct this thing that we need to do so that we can all thrive. It ain't about one group versus the other. That's what we're taught. But we need to break it down if that's the reality. And the reason that Professor Kim highlighted the need for fighting for unity amongst those who can build a unity is because the only way that this tiny class of elite can rule the globe is by convincing us that because we might look different, talk a different language, be somehow different, we are less than. And the real game is there's this abundance, and if we could figure out how to put our gray matter and our efforts together, dang, that abundance could be applied to humanity and the planet. That's a whole different kind of vision than what the globalists are talking about. So these are spaces where we reserve that time and right to say, this is ours. How do we go about it? How do we fight a machine that's trying to crush us? I insisted upon the healthcare part being involved in this for a whole bunch of reasons. Because not only do we need a roof over our heads and a way to take care of each other, but this year we saw men and women who were in wheelchairs who stood up for 74 million people. They stood up. Some of them maybe didn't have the best diction. That's why I wanted that sister who had not necessarily a great way of talking, and we had to strain to understand her. That gray matter was working, baby. And she said it all. We need health care because we're all human beings. Damn.